Good evening and welcome to the first class of finance. In this class, we will be talking about costs. Good evening, Varsha. So the first concept we are starting with is fixed costs and variable costs. Okay. So let's try and understand what are fixed and variable costs. So fixed costs, as the name suggests, are costs that do not change with change in sales or change in sales or revenues. Okay. So costs that do not change with change in sales or revenues are known as fixed costs. And what are variable costs? Variable costs are costs that change with change in sales or revenues. Okay. So let's try and understand this in the context of a few examples. And let us start with, say, the example of a McDonald's that is near your house. So what does a McDonald's sell? Yes, a McDonald's sells burgers. And in this case, for simplicity, let's assume that the McDonald's sells only one kind of burgers. Okay. So how does a McDonald's generate sales or revenue? So when it sells burgers, it generates a sales or revenue. And will the sales or revenues be different if in 1 month McDonald's sold 1000 burgers and in the second month it sold 2000 burgers? Would the sales or revenues be different in both the cases, or they would be the same? It will change. So just to understand it, suppose one burger was rupees 10. So if it sold 10,000, if it sold 1000 burgers, how much revenue would it have if one burger cost rupees 10? Yeah, rupees 10,000. And if it sold 2000 burgers, how much revenue or sales would it have? Yeah, rupees 20,000. So what's our Shivangi? So if you sold 2000 burgers and one burger cost you rupees 10, so you would have sales or revenues of 2000 into 10, which is rupees 20,000. So as we can see that the revenue or the So the revenue when we sold 2000 burgers was rupees 20,000. So they are different. So now let's look at different costs. So the first cost we're looking at is rent. So the McDonald's store near your house has taken an outlet on rent. So would the rent be a fixed or a variable cost, and how do we figure it out? We will check whether the rent is different when the sales were 1000 burgers or 2000 burgers. So if McDonald's sold 1000 burgers or 2000 burgers, would the rent change? So the rent would, so there is no change in this case, and hence it will be a fixed cost. Yeah. Let's move to another cost, electricity. So the McDonald's here is air conditioned and keeps its air conditioners and its lights switched on all the time, irrespective of whether there are customers or no customers. Okay. So would the electricity bill change if it sold 1000 burgers or 2000 burgers? So there would be no change. Yeah. So if there is no change, then what would it be? A fixed cost or a variable cost? It is a fixed cost. Okay. Let's take the example of cheese. Okay. So we know in the burgers, McDonald's puts a cheese slice. So the cost of cheese slices, would that be a fixed or a variable cost? Would the cost of the cheese slices be a fixed cost or a variable cost? Let's try and understand it. So suppose, just for a simplification, we assume that in each burger they put in a single slice of cheese. So when they sold 1000 burgers, they had to buy 1000 slices of cheese. When they sold 2000 burgers, they had to buy 2000 slices of cheese. Hence it changes and it is a variable cost, as all of you have rightly said. Now let's look at the cost of the store manager. So the store manager salary. Suppose the salary is rupees 30,000 a month. Okay. Now is this cost fixed or variable? Would the salary of a store manager change if McDonald's sold 1000 burgers or 2000 burgers? It would remain the same. It is fixed and hence there is no change and it is a fixed cost. Okay. So is this clear? The difference between a fixed cost and a variable cost. So let us now start doing some exercises so that we can understand and appreciate it better. Okay. Let's take the context of a Mr. Singh who has a shop from where he sells mobile phones. Okay. So again here, like we defined in the case of burgers, whenever we are in doubt, we will define this case that whether he sold 100 mobile phones or 200 mobile phones, did the costs change or not? And if they did not change, they would be fixed costs, and if they change, they will be variable costs. Okay. So rent. What would rent be? So for Mr. Singh, rent that he pays for his shop. So the rent does not change whether he sold 100 phones or 200 phones, and hence it is a no change and is a fixed cost. Electricity. So electricity he needs to pay for air conditioning, lighting, keeping the phones charged. So this cost would again be so there is no change and hence it would be a fixed cost. Yes? Okay. He's got a store assistant and he pays the assistant rupees 16,000 a month. Okay. So would the cost of the store assistant be a fixed cost or a variable cost? So the salary of the assistant is fixed irrespective of whether Mr. Singh sold 100 mobile phones or 200 mobile phones. So the cost of the sales assistant does not change. There is no change and hence this would be a fixed cost. Now he also has a salesperson who he pays rupees 8,000 per month plus rupees 50 for every phone sold. Now is this cost fixed or variable? Is the cost of the salesperson fixed or variable? Varsha, Diksha, are the costs of the salesperson fixed or variable? Let's try and understand it. So we use a test case. So when he sells 100 mobile phones, how much does he need to pay the salesman? How much does he need to pay the salesman when he sells 100 mobile phones? So 8,000 per month is his fixed cost plus 50 for every phone sold. So this is 8,000 plus 5,000, which is 13,000. And when he sells 200 mobile phones, then again 8,000 is the element, that is salary, plus 150 into 200, the 200 phones sold, which is 18,000. So what the first thing we can notice is that when the sales change, the salary of the salesperson changes, and hence from our first definition, it is not fixed, it is variable in nature. However, if you notice, the salary of the salesperson has a fixed component and has a variable component. So the salary has both components, fixed and variable, which we can say as fixed is how much? Fixed is 8,000 per month and variable is rupees 50 per phone, per mobile phone. So in this case, the cost of the salesperson is both as a fixed component and a variable component. And costs can have both fixed and variable components in them, which we can then segregate. Okay, is that clear? Okay, now let's move on to another concept, and here we will talk about contribution. Okay, so far we have understood that an organization does sales or revenues, okay, and against that they have costs, and the costs can be, so what are the two types of costs? Yeah, fixed and variable. So the two kinds of costs are fixed and variable. Contribution is defined as revenues minus variable costs. Okay. So the way we define contribution is revenues minus variable costs. And as we go ahead and do more exercises, you will start to appreciate why we define contribution. For the time being, we will just try and solve some questions and understand it. Okay. So how do we define contribution? Contribution is revenues minus variable costs. Let's start with a few exercises. A firm has sales of rupees 3,50,000. Its fixed costs are 85,000 and its variable costs are 2,10,000. So what would its contribution be? So what are revenues in this case? 3,50,000. What is variable cost? 2,10,000. So what is contribution? Contribution is 3,50,000 minus 2,10,000, which is equal to 1,40,000. Okay, is that clear? Okay, good. Let's move to the next exercise. Company XYZ had sales of rupees 15 lakhs. Its fixed costs were 2,40,000 and its variable costs were 16,70,000. So what would be contribution in this case? Can you tell me what would be the contribution in this case? Varsha, Hardik, can you tell me what is the contribution in this case? So can contribution be negative? Let's try and understand it. So what are revenues in this case? So revenues in this case is 15 lakhs. Variable costs are 16 lakh 70,000. So from our definition we know contribution is equal to 15 lakhs minus 16 lakh 70,000, which is minus 1 lakh 70,000. So contribution can be both positive and negative. In this case contribution is negative and we call it as negative contribution of rupees 1 lakh 70,000. So is that clear? So contribution can both be positive and negative. Okay. Any questions? Okay, good. Let's move on to the next example. So let's come back to Mr. Singh and his shop. So Mr. Singh has a shop where he sells mobile phones. Last year his total sales were rupees 26 lakhs 50,000. He spent rupees 21 lakhs 14,000 in purchasing mobile phones. He also spent rupees 1 lakh 20,000 on rent and 24,600 on electricity. So the question is to calculate his contribution. So how would we calculate contribution? First we will classify all the costs as fixed and variable, and then we will calculate the contribution. Okay. So in this case, let us start with the costs first. So the first cost is, and how do we specify whether a cost is fixed or variable? So we will use the same test, 100 mobile phones versus 200 mobile phones. Do you all remember this test? So purchasing mobile phones. So this cost of purchasing mobile phones, yes Hardik, that's right, at rupees 21 lakhs 14,000. Is that fixed or variable? Is this cost fixed or variable? So if he purchased 100 phones, obviously he will pay less for those phones, and if he sold 200 phones, he would need to purchase 200 phones and he would pay more, and because it changes, this is variable. Okay. Rent, is that fixed or variable? So that is a fixed cost. Electricity, is that fixed or variable? That is again fixed. So contribution in this case will be revenues, which is 26 lakhs 50,000 minus 21 lakhs 14,000, which is 5 lakhs 36,000. Is that clear? Is that what all of you have got? Varsha, Diksha, is that what you got? Okay, good. Let's move to the next exercise. Reddy Mills makes flour by grinding wheat. Last year it sold 15,000 bags of flour at rupees 240 per bag. Its fixed costs were rupees 4,50,000. It had to purchase wheat worth rupees 22 lakhs. Grinding wheat is very power intensive and consumed electricity of rupees 1,80,000. Calculate the contribution. Okay, so we will do the same thing here. We will first classify costs and then calculate the contribution. Okay. So let us start with classifying the costs. So fixed costs at rupees 4,50,000. So this is fixed or variable? So this is fixed, we have already termed it as fixed. Purchase wheat at 22 lakhs. Is this fixed or variable? Okay, so Diksha is saying variable, Hardik is saying fixed. So Diksha, why do you think it is variable? Vatsha, why do you think it's variable? Hardik, why do you think it is fixed? Okay, Diksha, what do you say, Varsha, Hardik? Okay, Hardik. So let's understand in this case, suppose a bag of wheat had 10 kgs of flour. Okay, so if we sold 10,000 bags, let's take the same example, 10,000 bags versus 15,000 bags, would he need different quantities? So if he sold 10,000 bags, how much wheat would he need? Hardik, how much wheat would he need if he sold 10,000 bags? So which is 10,000 into 10, which is 100,000 kilograms of wheat. And if he sold 15,000 bags, he would need equivalent to it, which is 15,000 into 10, which is 1,50,000 kgs of wheat. So as this is varying in both the cases, this is a variable cost. Okay, is that clear? Grinding wheat is very power intensive and consumed electricity. So grinding wheat cost, is that variable or fixed? So this is variable. So because if you sell lesser bags, you will grind less wheat and hence you will spend less on it. So in this case, what is contribution? Contribution is revenue. What is revenue in this case? What is the revenue in this case? So he sold 15,000 bags, ready mills, and each bag had a value of 240. So this is the revenue. Yes, Vatsha? Minus the fixed cost, which is the variable cost, which is the cost of wheat plus the cost of grinding. So which is 36 lakhs is the revenue minus 23 lakhs 80,000. So his contribution in this case is rupees 12 lakhs 20,000. Yeah, is that clear? Okay, let's move to the next exercise. Okay. So through these exercises, what's also important is we're trying to get a sense of different businesses, we're starting to understand it, and we will also get a sense of what different costs in different businesses are and how do they vary. Okay, so the purpose of different exercises here is to also get you a sense of different businesses. So here we are talking about an e-commerce company that had sales of 2 crores 12 lakhs 50,000 last year. It spent rupees 1 crore 78 lakhs 30,000 on buying the items it sold. It also paid rupees 12 lakhs 44,000 to Blue Dart for delivering these items to the customer. It spent 25 lakhs 40,000 on salaries of its management and engineering team. We need to calculate the contribution. So how will we go about calculating the contribution? What's the first step we do? Yes, we will classify fixed costs and variable costs. That's what we will do. Yeah. So let's start with them. So what the buying cost at 1,78,30,000. Is this fixed or variable? This is variable because because this is based on what orders is got. So depending upon the order, it would be buying. Blue Dart at 12,44,000. Is this fixed or variable? Okay, Hardik says variable, Varsha says variable, Diksha says variable, all of you are saying variable. Why is this variable? Suppose again we use the same thing, it had to give 100 orders or 200 orders. So Blue Dart typically, as we know, will charge per order, hence it is a variable cost. Okay, very good. And salaries at 25,40,000, is that a fixed cost or a variable cost? So that is a fixed cost. So what is contribution? Contribution is revenue 2,12,50,000 minus 1,78,30,000 plus 12,44,000, which is equal to, can anybody tell me what is the answer? Which is 21,76,000. Okay, so the contribution was 12,76,000. Okay. Yeah, okay. Is this clear? Is this example clear to all of you? Okay, let's move to the next. A firm makes 1,25,000 shirts a year. To manufacture a shirt, it needs 1.8 meters of cloth and 12 buttons. Cloth costs 70 per meter, and a packet of 100 buttons costs rupees 25. Also, it needs to pay the tailor rupees 65 per shirt. Annual rent is rupees 5,40,000, and other manpower costs are rupees 17,80,000 per year. If the firm sells a shirt for rupees 320, calculate its contribution. So the difference in this case is vis-a-vis the exercises we have been doing so far is that a lot of costs have been given on a per shirt basis. Okay. So can everybody see that a lot of these costs have been given on a per shirt basis. Okay. So to calculate it, we will start with the same principles. We will first classify the costs. So what are the costs here? So cloth. That is our first cost. Is that fixed or variable? Diksha, how is cloth fixed? So for each shirt we need 1.8 meters. So if we sell more shirts, we will need more cloth. So it is a variable. And how much is it? So it is variable and it is 1.8 meters. How much is it per shirt? Into 70. So this is equal to rupees 126. Okay. So this is our cost per shirt. So the cost of cloth per shirt is rupees 126 per shirt. Is this clear to all of you? Now let's got buttons. Buttons, is it variable or fixed? So buttons is again variable, and what is the cost of the buttons? It is 12 divided by 100 into 25, okay, which is rupees 3 per shirt. Remember that after the class you will be given a lot of exercises which are very similar to here, which you can practice. Okay, so all of you have to do that. Is that clear? Okay. And if there are any doubts, we would discuss them in the next class. Okay. Buttons we have done. Now tailoring. Now is tailoring a fixed cost or a variable cost? So that's a variable cost again. And how much is it? It is rupees 65 per shirt. Okay. Rent. Is that a fixed cost or a variable cost? Rent is fixed. So do we need to compute it as how much per shirt? Do we need to calculate it? So in this case we don't need to calculate it because it's fixed. Manpower costs, are they fixed or variable? Again the manpower costs are fixed. Okay. So what is our variable cost per shirt? It is the cost of cloth plus buttons plus tailoring, which is 126 plus 3 plus 65. So how much is this equal to? 180, 194. Yeah. So this is rupees 194. And how much? What is the selling price of a shirt? What is the selling price of a shirt? Rupees 320. So we will also understand. So contribution per shirt. Can anybody tell me what is contribution per shirt? So contribution per shirt is how much is one shirt contributing towards the organization. So which is its selling price minus its variable prices, which is variable cost, which is rupees 126. So contribution per shirt is rupees 126. Yeah, Varsha, 194 were the variable costs for a shirt. So we calculated that the variable cost for a shirt here is 194. So the contribution per shirt is its selling price minus its variable costs, similar to the concept of contribution for an organization, which is rupees 126. So how much contribution is this what was the contribution of this company? So what is the contribution for this company, for the firm? So we had to calculate its contribution. So what is contribution? Fixed minus variable. I did not understand is Hardik. So what would be contribution, Hardik? In this case, how will we apply that? So guys, understand, we know contribution per shirt. So how much is one shirt contributing? How much is one shirt contributing? Yes. How many shirts did he make in the year? Did the firm make in the year? How many shirts did the firm make in a year? So what would be total contribution? Is number of shirts into contribution per shirt. Now this is the case because we have accounted for all the variable costs in the shirt. So this is the same. So this is 1,25,000 into 126. Now can anybody tell me what is this? Okay, so this is 57 lakhs 75. Sorry. Okay. So is this clear? Is this example clear to all of you? Okay. let's move on. Okay, so the next concept we will do, and we will just touch upon it today, is profit and loss. So what all have we covered? We have understood sales and revenue, or let's call it only revenues now, so that all of us are clear. Then we understood costs, and we classified the costs as fixed and variable. And then we understood contribution as revenues minus variable costs. So how do we calculate profit? Profit is basically revenues minus total costs. Okay. So total costs means all the costs, fixed and variable, and it can also be written as contributions. If I want to write it in terms of contribution minus, how can I write profit? Yeah, so we had accounted for variable cost, so minus fixed cost. So this is defined as profit. So profit is revenues minus total costs, or it is contribution minus fixed costs. Okay. So for simplicity, we will use revenues minus total cost in most cases, and where we need to use contribution minus fixed cost, we will use that. So is that clear? So let's do a couple of exercises around this. So if we revisit our earlier exercises, if I just go back to the exercises we had solved. So can we calculate profit or loss in this case? So for this firm, can we calculate its profit? It had sales of 3,50,000, fixed costs of 85,000, and variable costs of 2,10,000. So what would its profit be? Revenues, which is 3,50,000, minus total cost, which is 85,000, plus 2,10,000. This is 2,95,000, which is 55,000 rupees. Is that clear? Similarly, for company XYZ, what would its profit be? We could calculate it as simple contribution minus fixed cost also we could do, which is 1,70,000 minus 2,40,000. So which is minus 4,10,000. So we would say loss of rupees 4,10,000. Okay. Like if we call it negative contribution in that case, in this case, if there is negative profit, we call it as loss. Okay. Is that clear? Similarly, for Mr. Singh in his shop, we calculated his contribution. What would his profit be? Can all of you help me calculate it? So in this case, again, we could do profit as contribution, we know 5,36,000 minus his fixed cost, which is 1,20,000 plus 24. So which would be how much? It is 2,91,600. 400. Okay. Okay. So is it clear? So should we do some new exercises on profit and loss? Let me give you a couple of new exercises. Okay. Mr. Kumar sold 40 pizzas every day in April. Each pizza sells for rupees 120. To make a pizza, he uses rupees 3 of wheat, rupees 15 of cheese, rupees 5 of electricity, and rupees 8 of packaging material per pizza. His other costs in April were rupees 25,000 salary, rent rupees 12,000, and marketing rupees 5,000. What was his profit in April? So can all of you help me calculate his profit in April? So how do we start with? We will first calculate his revenues. What are his revenues for the month of April? So he sold 40 pizzas a day. So how many pizzas did he sell in April? 40 into 30, 30 days in April, into price per pizza. So this is 1200 pizzas he sold at 120. So which is rupees 144. So his sales in April were 1,44,000. Okay, Hardik? So what were his variable? So can we calculate variable cost per pizza? So wheat is 3, cheese is 15, electricity is 5, packaging material is 8. So this is 20, 31. Okay. So what was his total variable costs in April? 31 into, he made 1200 pizzas, which is equal to, how much is this equal to? 37,200. Okay, so his variable costs were this much. Why is it 12,000? He made 1200 pizzas, Hardik, in April. Okay. Fixed costs were 25,000 for rent plus 12,000 for salary, 12,000 for rent plus 5,000 for marketing, which is 30,000, 42,000. So what was his profit? Profit was revenue, which is 1,44,000 minus 37,200 of variable costs plus 42,000 of fixed costs, which is equal to revenues, which is 1,44,000 minus 79,200, which is 64,800. So is that clear? Is this clear to all of you? Okay. So for this class today, for the first class, we will just do the last exercise, and I want all of you to do it well. And then after the class, you will get the list of exercises to do, which you should do it very well. And if you face any problems, we will do it in the next class. Okay? A firm made 1 lakh shirts and 80,000 trousers in March. A shirt uses 2 meters of cloth and a trouser uses 3 meters of cloth, which costs rupees 40 per meter. Other requirements like buttons, zip, elastic cost rupees 15 for a shirt and rupees 40 for a trouser. The tailoring charges for a shirt are rupees 50 per shirt and rupees 75 per trouser. The firm paid rupees 4,50,000 as rent for the factory and rupees 1,50,000 as rent for its office. Its salary costs in March were rupees 21 lakhs, marketing costs were rupees 18,50,000. If the firm was able to sell a shirt for rupees 180 and a trouser for rupees 300, what was its profit in March? So guys, how should we solve it? Where should we start from? Is this problem clear? Fixed and variable cost, how else should we solve it? Anybody else? So in this case, we have been given the cost of shirts and the cost of trousers. So let us calculate contribution per shirt first. Okay. So what is contribution per shirt? What is its selling price? 180 minus all its variable costs. So it needs 2 meters of cloth and cloth costs 40 rupees. Button, zips and elastic cost 15 rupees for a shirt, and tailoring charges are 50. Is that clear? Are you all following me here? Okay. So this is how much? 80, 130, 145. So contribution per shirt is 35. Is that clear? Yeah. So can all of you now calculate and tell me what is contribution per trouser? What is the contribution per trouser? Calculate it and tell it to me. Type it in your chat windows. Yeah, so this is 300 is the selling price. It uses 3 meters of cloth at 40, plus it uses 40 rupees of buttons, etc. and 75 rupees. So how much is this? 120, 160, 235, 65. Okay. So contribution per trouser is 65. So what is total contribution for this firm? So how many shirts did it make? 1 lakh into contribution of a shirt plus trousers, how much did it make? 80,000 into contribution of a trouser. So which is 35 lakhs plus 50, 48, 52 lakhs. Is that clear? Yeah. So which is 87 lakhs is the contribution. So now what do we need to find? To find profit? So what do we need to find profit now? Yes. So we will now need to find the fixed costs. Now what were the fixed costs? Rent 4,50,000 plus 1,50,000 for the rent for the office and the factory. Salaries were 21 lakhs and marketing of 18 lakhs 50,000. So how much is this? 6 lakhs 27, 45 lakhs 50,000. Yeah. So now what is profit? How will we calculate profit? So how will we calculate profit now? Yes, contribution minus fixed cost. So what is contribution? 87 lakhs minus 45,000, 45 lakhs 50,000, which is 31 lakhs 50,000. So is this clear to all of you? Great. So at the end of the class, you will get a lot of exercises to do on the Trisect learning portal. So it is important you attend all of them before the next class, and any queries you have, any doubts you have, you can always contact our Trisect teaching fellows, our expert mentors. They are there to help you. And any questions which are unresolved or queries which are unresolved you can come and ask it in the next class. Okay.